with that, I will go ahead and start a new session here, and I'm going to go to Storytell Development AI, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And I'm also going to open up another one, Storytell AI Development here as well. And so the difference between these two tabs that I've opened up is that one of them is signed in as Aaron from Storytell, and another one is an anonymous guest user. Now, both of these users, my anonymous user and the one where my identity is known, have full access to Storytell. And it's our desire to keep it that way forever if we can. Of course, we do have concerns about cost and how many tokens might somebody burn as a free user, but those are problems for another day. As somebody who's never been to Storytell before arrives, we want the system to be ready for them and functional for them without the friction of having to register first. And so we can demonstrate that by just coming down here and saying, hello, how are you? And interacting with the model. And I'll go ahead and hit the submit button here. All right, well, so we're back to looking up at that one. Let me go back and since we're doing this live, it's always fun. Let's go back and try my authenticated user and see if we can reproduce that there. Hello. Okay, so maybe it's just for the anonymous users. We'll have to look at that. Okay, so as we go back to the homepage, again, it's our desire to allow you to use the system whether you're signed in or not. And up in the top right, you can see that in this instance, I am signed in and I have my avatar. This avatar is sourced from Google. And so if you've taken the time to customize your avatar, you should see your pretty face there, or your cat or your dog or whatever you've decided to make your avatar. In my case, I'm just going with the default A. And as I switch back to the anonymous user, and we close that, you can see it says sign in up here. And so every user who visits Storytell, anonymous or otherwise, has an identity, has a user ID. It's just that we don't know what email address to associate with that user ID. But all of the data that I upload here is still private to that account, even though it's an anonymous account, a Jane or John Doe account, if you will. But all of the privacy protections are still in place in that the content I uploaded cannot be shared with another anonymous user unless they use the sharing capabilities that are under development. Okay, so up at the top right, start with this plus button. This plus button is going to allow me to create a new thread. And as we dive down the rabbit hole a little bit, this might be pretty hard to see here, but you can see we have project, and then we have this project ID up in the top right. And we also have a thread ID here. Now, when I start a new thread, you might notice that the project has stayed the same, but we have a new thread ID here. And now we can say hello again. And our project ID is still the same because we're working in the context of a project right now, my project. But we have two threads now that exist inside of this project. In the next demo, I expect that you'll see on the left-hand side a new navigation control, which will show some of the fruit behind the system here, and that you can have multiple threads stored inside the same project, and soon multiple projects. So you can organize your work into different projects for personal life, work life, home life, etc. But you can come up here to the top and create a new thread. Now, we'll go back to the homepage here, and we're going to play around with a feature I know many of you, if not all of you on the call, have worked so hard to help bring it into existence, which is these kind of great onboarding starting prompts. And so I'm going to go ahead and click into work, and I'm going to click into engineering, software engineering, because that is a use case that makes very good sense to me. And now I'm going to switch over to our code base, which is up here in this other window. And I'm going to grab some code. Let's grab this one. That should be good. And I need to rewrite this code in a different language. And so as I select this code, we'll go ahead and start the prompt. Now, as you can see here, we've got we're trying to train the user into how to use the system. And so Andy's worked on animating the actual submit button to help draw that and bring attention to that. So we'll go ahead and start the thread here. And as I paste in the code sample, we'll be able to see the prompt transformation that, again, everybody's worked so hard to bring these into existence. And it's so delightful to see these code blocks are looking very good. Thank you so much, Andy. This is so much prettier than the last time I saw this. This is looking good. Now, some of the things I want to point out here are the model button here. We've indicated who is responding to this question. Now, we know, because so many people have worked so hard on this call, that we've curated this response here. This is coming from our Notion database and the transformations that we've put into place. As we scroll down, though, this is coming from a model, one of the models that we select. In this case, it's the default model. But when you hover over the button here, there's this tooltip, and I'll try to bring more attention to this tooltip. It's still so small. The tooltip will tell us which model and a little bit of why we might have selected it or what we've done in addition to just sending it to the model. And so in this case, we can see that this one was processed by GPT-4o, and it's been enhanced by Storytell for the rewrite code in new language use case. And there's also a little hint here that it's used 370 tokens. And so there's just a little bit of kind of geek data that you can hover over here. And so as you're using the system and you want to validate, did we select the right use case? Did we process this particular prompt with that use case? You can hover over this button here and get just a little bit more insight into how we've processed this. Now I'm going to continue on this. I'm going to copy this, and now I'm going to switch context back over to the other browser window. And we're going to follow the same path. We're going to go to engineering, and we're going to rewrite in this language, and we're going to hit the submit button, and we are going to paste in the code. And I'm curious to see if we get similar output. You know, it always changes a little bit. And as the Dr. Seuss rhyme prints and the executive summary to the boss prints, there's a little button over here we did not see a moment ago. And as you're banging on the system, trying to find its weaknesses and, you know, bug reports and all those things, the areas of opportunity for us to improve, this button may be very helpful, especially as we start to get into hydrating template variables with the prompts and the transformation and the recipes. And so this button is not currently available to our customers, and I don't have plans to make it available to our customers. But for us internally, investigating bug reports or other things, this button may be very helpful. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on that button, and you can see an alert popped up to let me know that it's copied to the clipboard. And so what did it copy? As we paste this into the browser, now we can see a bunch of information. Again, it's geeky. I have had a request to make this maybe a little bit more approachable by printing in Markdown, but we haven't gotten there yet. But this is exactly what we've sent to the LLM for this message in the conversation. And so for every message, that button will be different, and the content we're sending to the LLM is different for every message. And so what is actually being sent to the LLM? We're sending an array or a list of messages. In this case, you know, we're sending kind of the objective in that the user needs to rewrite code in a different language. We're sending, which is the first prompt that we started off with. We're then sending the code that I pasted in. And then here, we're also sending that transformation. And so you can see exactly how we transformed that data. So this is the actual prompt that we sent into the user. For example, down here at the bottom, there's this guidance block, which says, you know, please don't repeat the prompt. or the transformation or the previous messages. And if the input that the user is providing doesn't seem to align, politely explain the mismatch, provide examples that are suitable and mark down. And then down here, if you need to offer guidance, you can address me as Aaron Greenlee. And so this is an example of that variable population at work, where my display name has turned into Aaron Greenlee. And so we can see if this works. You never know exactly what you're going to get with the LLMs. But let's go back and try this again and see what happens if I don't paste code. Oops, have to go back to the home page. We're going to work, engineering, software engineering. I need to rewrite code in a different language. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say, I like pancakes. And so as we look back into that, the geeky data here, when we enter code, we are transforming it as you might expect, including the Dr. Seuss rhyme or the executive summary. But when I typed in I like tacos, the guidance kicked in here because that doesn't really align with the mission that I need to rewrite code. And so we do see that the LLM is respecting that guidance, and it's saying, hey, it doesn't look like your input contains any code. You might want to provide some suitable input. And then lastly, you can see that it did address me by name, and it says, hey, Aaron, if you need further assistance, please let me know. And so that's a good example of how much we can accomplish in these prompt transformations, where we're kind of error self-correcting, that if the user doesn't put anything in that seems to align at all with that, we could even have examples in our prompt transformation that says, provide this example if it doesn't look like the input aligns, et cetera. And so there's an awful lot that we've just covered in this system, from creating a thread to transforming that thread to doing some error correction on that thread, and then in the populating of variables, in this case, my display name. And so the next time that you run through one of these prompt transformations and you're curious, did it do what we did? Is the system sending the wrong prompt? Is it not sending a prompt at all? The first way that I would diagnose that is, again, by hovering my mouse over the button here. And you can see the prompt transformation down in that tooltip, which is an indicator that at least we've gone down the code path to apply those transformations. And then if you're a Storytell user, again, you can see the exact prompt that we sent by clicking that button and pasting it in the browser. Now, these files, they're not going to live forever. These files automatically clean themselves up after 7 days. And that way we're not keeping a bunch of debugging data and paying for that, forever on the servers. And so you've only got 7 days. The system is not yet smart enough to hide this button after 7 days. But if you're debugging a message you sent 7 days ago, that's probably unusual. So some other little things as you might expect, we can copy the response here and paste it in. And so I won't send that to the LLM, but you can see we've copied that output here. And I haven't tried it for a code block yet, so I'm going to do that right here in the demo and see what that looks like. And so, Gerodio, to answer your question, we can say here you can see that this is exactly how the LLM sent it back to us as a code block saying it was plain text. And this was plain text, that was plain text, and this one's Python. And so maybe there's an opportunity for us to change our interpretation of a plain text block to wrap it.
Yeah, we can do that.
But it's right now it's working as designed. So, and then the last thing on this toolbar here to highlight now is this share link copied. And so now, I could paste this into the browser and share the link and return to the thread kind of exactly in the state that it was in. At the moment, we're opting for transparency and openness. And so although we do have protections, permissions, access control code in place, until we have the ability to invite a friend and we have a UI to manage the permissions and the sharing, right now everything is open. And so anybody I give this link to can come here, and you'll see the system kind of start to lock itself down as those UIs pop up in the next few weeks to manage permissions for these resources. Now, one of the other things, and I think this is a really cool thing, so I'm going to go back to work, And I'm going to go over to executives. Those executives are always so challenging to work with because they need summaries and you need to know how to present the right things to them. And so we're going to ask for a summary, and now we're just going to simulate content about an airline acquisition. Okay, cool. So now we've got a bunch of pretend data here. So I didn't have to actually go find a real file or real data. And as this beautiful markdown renders, and we get our conclusion here, let's go back here. And so as we highlight this, we have this really cool menu that pops up to get more detail or to find more like this. And so you can imagine as the system becomes more mature and we have our left-hand panel here showing all of your knowledge, whether it's your knowledge or organizational knowledge, you might find more data points, more knowledge like the knowledge that you've highlighted, or you can get more detail. And so as we get more detail and submit that, now the system can kind of drill down into that point that we've just highlighted, which I think is a really cool feature. Andy, is there anything that you'd like to highlight in, say, the prompt bar or anywhere else in the system?
Just a quick thing, some things you'll notice if you click on them, a pop-up will appear asking you for feedback. So Aaron, if you can, yeah, there you go. So we're gonna gate some of the features that are in progress and are not ready yet for people to see. We're going to have this pop-up appear and users will be able to click on the button and it will direct them to an email. It's a mail to link and they'll be able to send some feedback to us.
Yeah, I think that is pretty much a summary of everything that's going on. Now, some stuff that you can't really see is behind the scenes, there are two pathways to execute these transformations, or sorry, to interact with the LLM. We have one, which is, I would say, just a user-controlled journey, which we start to enter right here. If we say hello, and we can see that by putting our mouse over this button here, and you can see it was processed by GPT-4o using 9 tokens. But there was nothing about how Storytell enhanced this output. When we enter through one of these doors, through these onboarding channels, transformation paths, and we execute that, now you can see that this first one, we know those who have worked on these prompts, that we've written this output. And so this is coming directly from us. It's been the curated output. Simulate some data for me. And now as we continue the conversation and we put our cursor over this output, once it stops. And so now, again, you can see that it's been enhanced by Storytell for this particular use case. And I'm going to say repeat back to me, hello. See if we can get just a short message here. And now as we hover over this one, you can see this one did not go through that prompt transformation pathway because we've kind of completed, right now all of our prompts only have a single step. But it's possible that these prompts become more and more mature, these transformations or campaigns. And so at some point, if we see us having a 2-step or 3-step journey that we've kind of curated the path of, the system can become aware of that, and you would be able to see that by recognizing that that code path was walked, again, by hovering your cursor over here. So up here, this is all about applying that prompt transformation. Again, you can click here, come up to the top, paste it in. You can see all this transformation data that we sent. But for this last message, if I copied it, go back up, start a new one, you can see that there's no transformation data being sent. And so I hope, one of my big hopes is that as everybody becomes more and more familiar with kind of the internal workings of what's going on behind the scenes here, which the Notion database is an excellent vehicle to, because your hands are also behind the system here, right? Turning cranks and all that, that you can see exactly what's going on behind the hood by clicking that little button. Just some little things just to not gloss over. You may have noticed we're going from dark mode to light mode. If you when you arrive to Storytell, whatever your preferences set for your system or browser, Storytell will respect that. And if you like everything to be in light mode, then Storytell should be in light mode. If you like it to be in dark mode, it should be in dark mode. Or if you're one of those who changes and during the day it's light and at night it's dark, you should see that too.